brought this international media to come in and kind of go over you and I's understanding about how we kind of foresee things on the reservation. I've been pursuing a direction to try to help our tribe overcome a lot of the obstacles of illusion, and most of all, to try to improve, the substandard, living conditions, all the things, pertaining to drugs, alcohol, the abuse, and by going out into the international realm, I find media like this that really want to take a foothold by looking into the reservation itself as first-hand experience. So the crew decided to say, well, if you invite us in, we'll come in. I talked to Rich about 2 weeks ago. He was asking me, has Standing Bear got a hold of you? I said, yeah, last night. He was asking me, are you going to make it to that prison reform meeting? I said, I'm going to, one way or the other, I'm going to make it. It's 2 days, Friday, July 5th and 6th. So, I said, either way, I'm going to figure out a way to get there. He said, okay, well, right now, we're on travel. We're coming up by Kansas. There's this blockade stuff going on. I said, yes. So they arrived this morning, and I was honored. So they're out with me out to Grandma Cecilia's. We had to bring her in, 4th of July, all that. So she's over there. So aside from all that, I says, well, let's get to the point of all these understandings, and let me introduce you to our tribal president and get some first-hand experience from his point of view and how he sees, how he's trying to implement something on the reservation that would be productive, and however they determine to, change, his understanding with it, it'll be up to him. But I says, I got to get clarification from that, because as you and I spoke, and I didn't tell him anything about what you and I talked about to meet you up there at 9, and I've been up there all that time.
Yeah. Well, I told you it was going to be either 9 or noon. I got two different calls. It sounds like we're going to go up there and round dance at noon.
Right. Okay.
We are going to go up there.
So, first of all, to the media, my name is Chanup Agluha Money. My Anglo name is Dwayne Martin Sr. I got away from that name back in 2007. Therefore, I stand on the independent ticket. I want my people to understand that they have to get back and start asserting their sovereignty by going back to their traditional identity. And Mr. Brewer has been elected for the Oglala Sioux tribe as the newly elected tribal president, and he got into office on December of 2012, and it's been kind of a uphill battle for him to determine, his fate on how he's going to improve, the situations on the reservation. So I'll let Mr. Brewer, the president of the Oglala Sioux tribe, give you maybe some kind of understanding that we can kind of either we can have a understanding where we can be in agreement or disagreement with what he sees as the Oglala Sioux tribal president on the Climate Virginia residence.
Well, you gotta put me on the spot right My day off, I'm thinking of other things, fireworks, my grandkids, things like that. But when I got into office, I came in without an agenda. Most people do come in for some reason, benefit themselves or their families or something like that. But I didn't come in with an agenda. There was about 10 different things that I was really concerned about. I was hoping that maybe I could address all those concerns. But the tribal council pretty much stopped me, limited me on the number of people I could put on. So I have a staff of 3 people who are trying to address as many problems as we can. And they all seem to mesh together on housing. Right now I need 4,000 homes, 4,000 people that don't have houses. I get calls every day. I'm working with FEMA. We're having a housing summit in September. We're bringing a lot of entrepreneurs in, different people, financiers and stuff to see what we can do about housing. But then when I get someone a house, then if they don't have a job, how are they going to take care of it? They can't depend on the tribe. So next thing I'm working on jobs. I have 3 the federal government has $300 billion in loan guarantee money. We have 3 industries that were approved by the Bureau of Indian Affairs out of Utah, one of the reservations on it. It was approved, everything. And here the chairman at the end decided he wanted a helicopter. So they threw it out. So I got a call, some people offered me these. So I'm applying for this. We're going to have 3 industries. And each industry might employ maybe 25, 30 people, but that's a start. So we're going to get that going. We're working on different things. We got the wind energy through, we got 6 tribes in the state of South Dakota that are making a joint effort. And the Bush Foundation gave us $5 million to get it started. We just came back from the President Global Initiative. They are supporting us, so right now we're getting money on that. But we'll be able to have wind farms on all 6 reservations that all tie into one line, be able to provide electricity for our own people here, and we'll be able to sell it. The state of California really wants our electricity, so right now we're figuring out how to get a pigback line, which would take our electricity to California. There is a group that would like to build our own separate line. So but that's down the road a little bit. I mean, that's going to take a little bit of time here. But that's something that will happen. Like I say, the housing, the jobs. I went to 2 weeks ago. I went to a wake for a 10-month-old baby that was murdered because of alcohol. And 2 weeks before that, I went to another wake, and it was another 10-month-old baby that was murdered because of alcohol. So when I went to those wakes, everything kind of changed, and that became a number 1 priority. When I came into office, I said I wanted to stop the alcohol and close up White Clay. It's always been a priority of mine. And I realized closing White Clay is not going to stop the alcoholism or anything that goes on here. But I think it'll send a strong message to our young people that we are concerned about it. And I know the people in White Clay, everyone thinks they make millions of dollars. And realistically, it's not them, it's the distributors that make the bulk of the money. And that's where our battles with Anheuser-Busch and the other distributors out of Scottsbluff, Nebraska. But the tribal council did pass a resolution to have a referendum vote, secretarial election to legalize alcohol. One of my concerns is they don't have a plan. They say they had one. I asked to see it, they don't have it. So I am preparing for that, because if the people do go to alcohol, then we better be ready for it. Through education and creating a liquor commission, how we'll operate. And I know it will be a close vote. And I'm not for it, I'm not for the alcohol being legalized. But if the people do want it, then we have to be ready for it. So I've just created a commission. I talked to some people to make a plan if it does happen. What are we going to do? We had our first meeting. I created a commission on health, violence, of our communities, violence that goes with the poverty that we live in. Our children and our adults, our elders, we have physical abuse, mental abuse, and also sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is the one that I'm really concerned about. Because of our housing, we have 2, 3 families living in some of these homes. Our children are the ones that are being abused, and a lot of it is because of alcohol. So, with this commission that I've created, we are going to try to address some of those problems. I've been going out to the districts. One of the things with my car accident really slowed me down. So right now I have a schedule. I'm going to start going back out to the districts, meeting with the communities. Right now our districts are split. They're fighting each other. And they've been fighting for, it's almost become generational splits. And when the adults are fighting, their children are fighting, and then that breeds gang violence. So now we have gangs, and they're fighting each other. So it's really sad. I know went out to one district and I talked to them about everything that was going on. They had some people that were beaten out there. Hard to get ambulance service out there. We had one person that almost died. Took us 3 hours to get an ambulance out there. And the people told me that, you know, they said, Bryan, we had enough. We're ready. Let's stop. So that was really a good sign, you know, that we are. I think a lot of the people are ready to come back together. We need to work together. So many issues that have separated them. No matter what it might be, you know, we're all Lakota. We need to bring the people back together and start working together. So we have a lot of issues. The tribe just doesn't have the money to support to meet all the needs, and the tribe has to be accountable. But also, I'm saying the people have to be accountable too. You know, they can't depend on the tribe to support them with everything because we just don't have the money. And then we have to work together. They have to be responsible. You know, it's summertime right now. They should be getting ready for winter. Be working together, planting gardens. But because of so many people live in cluster housing, they can't. There's no place to put in a garden right now. And I just went out to Oglala yesterday afternoon after work. There's a big community garden going out there, which is really something. I'd really like to see more things of that, but we don't have the machinery, things like that. There's a lot of things that we can do to help ourselves, but the people have to step up, and they have to tell our council what they want. We've got the Salazar money, and they gave each district $1 million to do what they want. First it was going to be for economic development. Now some of the districts are saying they want per capita, and you know, with per capita, they'll each get maybe a couple $100, few $100, and then they're going to be broke. But with this money, this $1 million, you know, $1 million is really not a lot of money. If you think about it, if you want to start businesses and things, it's not that much money. But with $1 million, I really feel they could have built safe houses for our children. You know, worked out maybe some things to start building homes. The economic development brought me a deal that's out of, I forget what state it is, but we could buy each district. We could start, get the machinery, the tools and everything. We'd start even making blocks with our clay and start building homes, building our own homes. So there's just so much we can do, but you know, we just have to work together. But so many issues that we have, it's almost, you know, just flooded all day. Have people lined up every day needing help. We have a number of people, Wayne Sturgill from Lake Creek Electric asked him to come over yesterday, so he met with me. And we still have a large number of people without electricity right now, stemming from this summer. So, and we don't have the money. We can't do it. So those are things there that some of my things that I have to deal with. It's very difficult right now. And it's hard when people come in and say, I can't help you. It's tough. That's why I hate that job. For that reason, the number of people come to see me, and I think they just want to talk and tell me what their problems are and what they are. And I think, you know, somehow we need to, it's a tough one. You know. People have to work together. We need to help from the outside, but we need to exercise our sovereignty and tell, you know, where the federal government puts so many things, you know, standards for us that we have to meet. And it's very difficult for us to get money from them. But you know, I'd really like to see the day where they can say, we don't need you anymore. You know, we don't want you. Leave. You know, we'll take care of our own people and we'll do what we have to do. But I think a lot of that has to come from outside. With our banking, we don't have a bank here. Right now they're talking about a central bank coming in, but we also need other banks also. Because all our money leaves the reservation. I'd really like to own some businesses in Rapid City where we can employ some of our people that live up there. bring that money back to the reservation. And I think that all of that is possible. Right now I have some lawyers working on the land that's in Rapid City, Siouxland, by the Siouxland Hospital, and up by Lakota Homes. That whole Sioux Park area, that is all land that belongs not to the Sioux, but actually belongs to the Oglalas. So I'm really going to see what we can do to get some of that land back. And with that, we can open up some businesses, whether it be casinos or something that generates money. So that's kind of where I am in the loophole with some of the things that I'm working on, with some of the problems that we're having.
You know, what President Brewer had, indicated here on his job title and his description of how he's moving forth on these efforts of bringing, self-dignity to a reservation that's been divided for the past 79 years since the Indian Reorganization Act was illegally, enforced upon them. One of the things that I wanted to try to emphasize on was that past and present tribal administrations have lacked the ability to meet these standards more on a traditional basis. You have a number of groups, whether they're independent groups that are within the reservation to implement this type of change in the validity of what a tribal council would try to pursue as a direction to bring some commonwealth to the reservation. We have never met them substantiated areas that would fulfill that type of mutual agreement. And since I've been involved with my reservation for the past 41 years, I've seen this type of insult of our people relying on the federal government to try to make everything appropriate so all these needs are met, in a professional standpoint. And number one, the tribal councils have never ever made that attempt. They always went after money rather than trying to safeguard the rest. Now, for a lot of the reservations understanding, and I only speak on this point because I've witnessed it throughout my time, that if you lead a water to the if you lead water into a bucket, or you pick it up and put it in the bucket, that water will stay fermented, okay? It's up to you to make that water move from the next table or the plate or wherever, or even drink it. But water has always been, it's been captured, it's been contaminated as a way of dealing with, the economic structure on this reservation. So this structure kind of plays a real detrimental effect to that water being still, okay? And what President Brewer just explained here, there's a lot of work that he needs to try to get the people to stay appropriate on. And one of the things that I've always tried to implement was that alcohol has been a problem since it was legally forced upon us within that 50-mile buffer zone. And it shouldn't take an act of Congress to make that change. A tribal president can launch this understanding, and I know this. I've seen it when our grandfather was the chief of police on this res, because President Brewer's father worked with them. And so they kept alcohol and drugs off this res completely. We didn't have the type of contamination that you have now. We're talking about the late 60s, early part of the 70s. And so when the relocation kind of implemented that same type of standpoint again, okay, that's when they start increasing alcohol and drugs back on red. Back then, they had people doing wine, this cheap wine that was in a bottle. First it was clear, like that glass, and then it went to a green bottle, which the tribal people called green lizard. So all this was prevalent, that alcohol was the problem. I've seen my family is still under that type of contamination. Now, I know this because I've seen it before. Bryan, I really want to kind of open a strong virtue with you. In 2012, I had the opportunity to help the newly elected tribal president, Thomas Wason, with the Tososowi band of Western Shoshone in Winnemucca, Nevada, receive and re-enter his tribal compound. It was done on September 12th, didn't it?
Yeah.
September 12th, we took him back into tribal office. So he took control of his tribal affairs. And everything that he did was so profound that he ordered the BIA off the res. So this same thing that is happening here can happen. Just the appropriate thing that Mr. Wason did, because the BIA was dividing their people so much that it took a federal court judge to rule in his opening statement, and we were there to exercise that by getting him back in the army. His uncle was the current tribal chairman, but they killed him at the doorsteps of the tribal headquarters. And so the nephew fought with that on, and it took approximately 12 years to make it happen, and Strongheart's been in their corner. AIM was supposed to do something, but they didn't want to deal with that kind of, because out there, and you've been in Nevada, you know the difference in the pros and cons out there. It's so racial. So when Mr. Wason asked us to take part in that, we implemented that, found by Representative Oglala Sioux on that independent standpoint. So when the Judge Robert Jones did it, Robert Jones ordered us to take him back into this tribal headquarters and make him see his chairmanship. And on September 12th, we done that. Great victory. Big international press. So, as futures, played out just recently, we were there again. I invited him to come to South Dakota and try to touch base with the Oglala Sioux's current tribal president and find an avenue that will better enhance, and you just mentioned this earlier, it's going to take outside people to make these type of establishments happen more on an independent standpoint. Because you just said what you said right there was a prime example. If he gives somebody a home, and if they can't keep it up, the house deteriorates, alcohol, drugs, violence, all that's going to happen in that home. So needless to say, if you give our people a chance to be productive, then and only then can they keep that house afloat. I know. Our elders, for instance, I've been fighting for them for the past, 11 years. Finally, they drugged me to that point where we had to seize control of this Meals for the Elderly program in this community called Porcupine, which you guys will later on see. But that building has been condemned 4 times, from the district itself, from the tribe, then us Strongheart, and then the Health and Human Services out of Denver, Colorado. The regional director came here. Her name was Courtney Hoskins. So rather than taking the building down and erasing it off the map, what do you think our people did? They remodeled it. When a building is condemned, you do not remodel a condemned facility by law. That's the standard. While everything that's happening on the reservation is being detrimental to the well-being of our people, so that's why nothing's healthy. Now, when Mr. Brewer first took office, I met him out there in Prairie Winds Casino. He had a meeting out there to meet with the people. And one of his issues on his candidacy when he got elected, it had his contract was with the Oyate. And so now what he just said was a proven fact that now the Oyate won him in the districts to hear the needs, because he has a plan, okay? And he's right about one thing, and I'm very upset with that, because his council is attacking him, and he's only one. But I know if the people make it very, informal for him, they can stand right beside him and rid them, because this man has the power to veto anything, because he's an elected tribal president. And he doesn't have to go to a referendum. He can say, no, I'm president. I'm not going to give that chance, because this is what's killing. He just admitted 2 things. And we're the ones who got them calls on them 2 babies that he went to. And so we are very aware of that, Bryan, about the 2 infant children that got killed. And so these are the type of conditions that are happening, and they're rapidly on the rise on this reservation. But the federal government keeps tying the noose upon our council. When the newly established law and order code was passed about 2009 and 10, I went to that education summit on that, pronunciation of that S797. And the guy that did this interpretation to administer to all these nations and the tribes that were there, he put the federal dollars on the left hand. Then he put the new Law and Order Act on the right hand. And he told the tribes, you can't have either, you gotta take them both at the same time. I was there. And so I interjected on an independent note because our people should not have to beg for that. And if I do remember correctly, the Oglala Sioux tribe was one that kind of rejected from that standpoint, and a tribe down in California. And that California tribe is still running independent and sovereign. Well, my reservation here is that way because we're the only reservation that's closed from state jurisdiction. Oh, we have state agencies here, like right outside Mr. Brewer and his residence is a state facility called Department of Social Services. And them things are all treaty pronunciation because in America they forget one thing. I've worked with the late Russell Means, and I used to try to get him to understand one thing. When you look at the pronunciation, are you guys familiar with the treaties? Mm. Okay, we have one that's the 1851 and 1868. So each one of them have a pronunciation. As long as the grass grows and the river flows, the federal government will always take care of us. Okay, they haven't done that. The only thing they took care of us on was the social distortion through education, okay? And no offense to education, because in a modern point of view, people need that. But the understanding behind the education, what's happening, it's killing our people because they lack the emphasis to reconnect with their own traditional education. Now, rather than I and Mr. Brewer sitting here talking in your people's language from out there, we should be talking in Lakota and allowing you to figure it out. See, in our term they say, "Wo Lakota kililo otech." Cha wicha sakile itchacha wanspe kehe te hunta. Ye cha yank in the wo Lakota kehe wankata egna kikte. But you don't ever see that. And the last time we had a fluent speaking tribal chairman was during when Vincent Tulance, and then after that was Gerald One Feather and Stanley Looking Out, and then the last one was Joe American Horse for 2 terms, and from there on we had no more. So right there you could see the federal government had a way to attack this problem. So when they allowed that power to go back into the council, that really made it very, in a stalemate, point of view, that it undermined the president's virtue to be that leadership. So the council controlled it. And we've seen this from past and present. And I understand exactly what Mr. Brewer is saying, because that's almost like, finding a needle in a haystack, in modern, pronunciation. But in reality, if you allow this man to do his job and take that responsibility away from the council, then and only then can you create a healthy reservation, because a healthy council makes a healthy reservation. And that's not what has been happening since the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 had been illegally thrown upon us. And so you can see it. All these businesses that were once thriving on this reservation, when even Sioux Nation was under attack because of their spoiled meat, and I was around during that, just about a year and a half ago that happened. And you could see Caucasian businesses come into our res, okay? But the equivalency that is supposed to be deemed and give back to the tribe, it's never met with that perfection. I know it, I see it, I got the records on it. So on an independent note, a lot of us are trying to bring a stronger virtue on that by allowing that infrastructure to take hold for Indian people especially that are traditionally minded, to implement some type of provision or a facility that will better enhance and save the reservation from its incline. And this decline that's happening in the economy, we're not the problem. That's where America needs to be held for that. But it's going to take tribal people to challenge them on that, and we haven't had that. So now we do have a foothold. And if I'm reading something wrong or correctly, Brian, are you taking that approach to go out to the UN too?
I'm, uh, I'm going to go to before the only people I'd ever gone to the UN is our treaty people.
Right.
And I'm going to be realistic. A lot of the UN doesn't recognize a lot of our treaty people our issues, but I'm going to go to the UN as a government. And the first issue is on the XL pipeline.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to go for. That's a big thing. But hopefully, if we can, get some relationships with other countries and stuff, that may help us here. Right now, we have Saudi Arabia wants to come in, and lease our land, some of the land, and grow grain and take it back to their country. So I'd like to build some relationships like that. But I am going to try to go to the UN and have them recognize the Oglala Sioux tribe as an independent nation and deal with us. So that is something I'm going to work on. The XL pipeline, they're trying to ram it down our throat. The last consultation that they had in Rapid City, we went up, we protested, we left. We had about 4 tribes over there, and they wanted to negotiate the AIM grassroots and everything, ran them out. So now they want to meet again, and they're forcing it upon us, but I'm going to see if I can go to the United Nations, I will deal with them through there. But the thing is, we're running out of time, and looks like Obama, he got out of it. He's going to push it off on Kerry to make the decision on it, because he doesn't want to do it. So we need to get through Kerry. Kerry has a sister that's really involved, works for the UN, so we're hoping that if I can get it to the UN, we can maybe get something going there. But our form of government, the IRA government that I'm dealing with now, does not work. It hasn't worked. It's never worked. So last week we're going to we have a committee. We're getting names right now to do a constitutional change on our government. Like I said, our government does not work. It can't work. The infrastructure doesn't work. I'd really like to see us really put a lot of our traditional things back in there, how to deal with things. So we're going to get some diverse people on this committee. I got a couple people are working on it now. They're going to submit some names to me who they'd like to see on this commission. But I'd like to have something that maybe at our next election that we can put up to the people to vote for on the constitutional changes. Thing is, our hands are tied. Our tribal council, their sole purpose is lawmakers, but they get into everything else that they shouldn't be. Establish committees became pretty powerful, but they really have no power. But they sort of make it. They have to deal with those committees. So it's very difficult. But I think with the constitutional change, the change of the constitution, I think it would be a good deal. Give the power back to the people. Have a tradition for it. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm really afraid that the tribal council may try to stop it. This is where the people have to say, no, we want it, because we're going to go to each district with this commission, get recommendations for constitutional change. And I think it would be the best thing that would ever happen if we can get it through. If we can get it for a vote, I know the people want to change. Everyone's tired of what's been going on. When I ran for office, I was talking to my friend, and I don't want to work for the IRA. And I remember Alex Whitetoon called me, and he was there, and he said, well, someone's got to do it. I said, well, I guess, so here I am, trying to work through it, but it's very difficult. And working with the bureau. And I think the bureau is they kind of want to stay away from us right now, but we have to force them in there to answer some of the questions, especially on our land and everything. Through the COBAL, we're getting $126 million for buyback land. But they're limited us to only buy fractionated land back, which is, it's good for tribal, be able to build up our base. But the thing is, there's so much deeded land out there that's owned by the white people that I would like to buy back. I want that land back. But here we go. The federal government determines who we can buy the land back and determine what price we can pay. I'd like to see some incentives for where we could, if you have some fractionated land, we'll give you a good price, make it worth your while, and then make sure that if you want land, we'll have land for you. And I know it's going to be very difficult because a lot of the people are down there saying, Bryan, I only have a little bit of land, but if I sell it to the tribe, then I have nothing. I'm a landless Indian. So it's going to be very difficult to buy that fractionated land. And I really wish we could buy the land that's where all the white people are willing to get that back, because that would really help us. We need to get more of our land back. We don't know, and if we bought, if we could if we could use that to buy back, put it back into the tribe would generate about $5 million a year additional tax lease monies, which would really help us. So it's we're in a tough situation here. It's going to be up to the people what we get done.
You know what, Mr. Brewer has been interacting with that stuff, about our land and the basis that's happening on this whole process. I think I'll kind of get really heavy with you guys. And I mean you guys, because America has always practiced and perfected colonial policies against indigenous people. And when they failed to meet those standards, they take them same policies, they throw them outside our waters. My waters. America belongs to us indigenous people, first and foremost. You want to ask any occupancy, you ask us, the First Nations. So when them policies are implemented to those other countries, and they reject them, they bring them same policies back, then they impose them upon the American people, okay? So now, my country, with that false name, America, has become one big Indian reservation. And that's the big norm, to really see that, because we're all codependent on the federal government. But I know this because working against the fights against the imperialists and Zionists, the rich will continue to get richer, regardless of what the infrastructure may be. Even if they try to impose economic development to a structured level. Reservations like Pine Ridge, we have the largest pockets of oil, uranium, and zeolite. Not only that, there's other resources here. So America has taken this type of foreign policy through Indian policy and blocked us into this little checkerboard, okay? And so now that all these nitrates that are underneath our grandmother outside, America wants them. So when I look at this whole picture, and I can't speak for Mr. Brewer. I can't. That's his choice to be this, person that leads our people if we're determined to meet the 22nd century. For me, as an individual fighting for the rights of my people, that's what I'm good at, fighting the rights of our people. The rights have been, subjugated to this abuse because nobody believes in freedom anymore. That belief system, what they once had, is gone because of the alcohol, epidemics, drug epidemics, the housing shortage, and the abuse epidemics. Elder abuse is epidemic now. Now we're to that point where we're abusing our children. Now we're even killing innocent babies. And who's to blame? We can't blame ourselves for it because we weren't a nation that destroyed its people within. America's responsible for this, okay? So tribal governments need to react with that type of emphasis to put the damper on them. Once you put that foothold to blame the person that is responsible, then you will see the course of history starting to improve its independence, okay? It's never going to go anywhere. It ain't going to happen overnight, but it's going to take courageous people to hold the federal government accountable for all these illegal atrocities that are happening to a nation that had prosperity and dignity with the word freedom. And that's the way we lived. But when you replace it with this type of form of education, you kill the identity of our people. So therefore, it's easy to use alcohol and drugs and destroy them. My country and my reservation, known as Pine Ridge, is on the verge of a language extinction. I used to try to say this to the late Russell Means, and he couldn't get it. God rest his soul. But I'm still pushing for that, because if language-minded people lose that pronunciation, when you go to the world courts, I've been there. We just got back from the United Nations a couple of weeks ago. When we were out there, all these groups made appearance out there, but they only met with the rapporteurs. And we met with the high commissioners. And we were on the 13th floor, weren't we? And what I proposed to them, and I want Mr. Brewer to hear this, I invited them to come to our res because a year ago, they had a special rapporteur come in by the name of James Anea. And he was designated for his appearance on the Rosebud. So therefore, the Oglalas didn't have their elders to speak on his platform. And that was an insult for us, because a lot of them said they were going to get on that agenda. And it was only a handful picked, and all the elders didn't. That was a sad situation that they did by deriving our people's right to give adherence and testimony to them. But what do you expect? He's a rapporteur. He's just a guy to take public interest, not notation as issues. Okay. So the grandmothers, on the other hand, from Pine Ridge, had launched this campaign called the Grandmother's Truth Tour. So we took a few of them out to the UN to, present their case on genocidal behavior. And lo and behold, they took it, didn't they? On June 13th. So this is what they're looking at. And everyone says, oh, you can't do that. You can't go out there and air out your dirty laundry. Hey, America never airs out theirs. And if you look at the structure of the United Nations, indigenous people are never, ever represented in there as a free and independent state. That's genocide. America represents indigenous. You can't have that. There were 4 countries that went against this newly resurrected draft Declaration on Human Rights Independence, okay? Great Britain, New Zealand, France, and America. So what does that tell you? So these world countries, they're not seeing the personification of how America lies to the world. But it's going to take people, and I've been trying to get more of the tribal people, especially the council people, to understand this. Now, I do remember about 6 years ago, newly elected, he's still in office now, Senator John Thune. I met with him in Washington, D.C. at the discussion of when Alex Whiteplume was the vice chairman under Cecilia Firethunder's administration, okay? And John Thune wanted 3 signatures from elected tribal officials. I got 1 signature from Will Peters, Garfield Little Dog Steele, and Eileen Janice, okay? And this is how America lies. So I know they can never be trusted. So when I produced these signatures of them to launch a full-fledged investigation against that corrupted system, they didn't want to honor them signatures. They didn't want to recognize the council's leadership. I said, okay, and I still have that as a form, all right? So now I come back to the reservation again and rebuttals with my people and the council. Well, it changed hands again. And this time, the vice chairman, Owens Whiteroom, ran against John Steele. I was there. I led the protest for him. Lo and behold, he turned around and gave the keys back to Mr. Steele. And it's back to the same thing again. Okay? So now he repeated his contingency as another tribal president. This man's been in office so many terms, it's unbelievable. There's a gentleman from Lower Brew. What's his name? Jandrew. Mike Jandrew will never leave. But the conditions are far worse than us. I seen a guy living in a van with a stovepipe there. Brandon Sazu from the Crow Creek Reservation invited me to take a look at that. And when I saw that, the barriers went up, okay? And that's inhuman. But America shouldn't do that to its First Nations people. We should be having, every type of, infrastructure of, economic development and all this, involvement of what political, endeavors are about should be thrown out the door, cast out. If you throw the system out and you create a healthy independence of a government, then and only then can you save your people. If Lithuania can do it, Bolivia can do it, because Bolivia has the only indigenous president. That's an Indian, Evo Morales. I met him. I also met the late Hugo Chavez. I went to Venezuela. That's why my tribes get free propane from him. It was a struggle to do that, but I did it, okay? So this is the type of thing we talk about, because we're never going to get ahead until our tribes stand up and demand it, direct accountability from the federal government. We've tried everything. It's not working. We're living according to their golden rule, and it's still not working. We got our people putting up an encampment outside this little hamlet called White Clay. That's not working. And if that's our land, America, then allow us to take it back. And I know this man can do that because it's still part of our buffer zone as the land goes. If you look at our original treaty map, White Clay is in it. That's part of Pine Ridge. Way before I was born, they used to call White Clay Doings, didn't they? See? So that this Doings place was created where these farmers could trade goods with our people. But then, the government saw a way to bring whiskey in. Start trading that and it start knocking off our people. But back then in the 60s and 70s, they had bars, didn't they? They had Jumping Eagles and they had Callies and Stablers. And then there were bars you could actually go in there and drink. But then you also had a stronger emphasis of law enforcement. Because I know my grandfather and his father were under the same administration. So you didn't have the contamination. Of course, the grandma that died used to bootleg. Remember, she used to have her window open all the time for the people to go up. Josie's.
Oh yeah,
Josie's, remember?
I forgot that.
We're talking way back in the day, see? So we know how our people used to sneak up there. And then eventually they start finding a way to bring it in. But this is what really happened. They were supposed to kill a white man back in the days because he had violated a young girl on this reservation. And he went into one of them liquor establishments. But an Indian came out, and it was Joe Morganhorse. And the bullet that was meant for the white man struck the Indian. While it should take death to shut down, the beer establishments like the bars. Okay, but that's what happened, and that's why they shut the bars down and they went to off-sale. And off-sale's been chaotic. We have the highest death rate and mortality rate in that town alone with unsolved cases. But America's responsible for that because of their liquid poison. Right here, our people's genetic system is not in tone to accept alcohol. We don't know how to eat properly to their food. We're not designed that way. We're protein people. We live off the land. We're meat eaters. Our vegetation is our turnips and wild potatoes and carrots and those kind of things. Those are ours. But America puts up safeguards and puts us in this check box. So we can't hunt for ourselves. We can't do these things. We have to be compatible. Well, that's a lie. The reason it's a lie because I met a professional attorney by the name of, he's also a scholar. His name is Stephen Pavar in Connecticut. And he holds the greatest law book of all. And just recently at the ICWA Summit, he gave that law book to an international attorney by the name of Daniel Sheehan. And this law book can prove to the rest of the world that our sovereign and our independence is still alive. But it's going to take a president like this man to move in on that, to hold America accountable.